Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 9 o'clock, which means it's time for a Talk Magic. And I am super excited for this moment right here because I have on the channel today somebody I've known for many, many years. He is the best kept secret in Magic. He is the guy that nobody knows about, but everybody should know about because he's the man. He's the man. I can't tell you how much that this man is the man. We are, of course, talking about Patrick Wolford. How you doing, Patrick?
Hey, Craig. That's quite an introduction.
Thank you. You are incredible. You're super creative. You're one of the nicest people I know. You'll help anybody. And for those people that don't know who you are one of the top guys in Murphy's. You're in charge of magic creation and purchasing and a whole bunch of other stuff. You work with a big team over there, and you're a very important guy in Magic. And a lot of people haven't heard of you, but I have, and it's great that I've got to know you for as many years as I have because you are awesome. I'm telling you right now, you are really well.
And I feel the same about you. You're, of course, super creative. We were talking earlier, and a lot of the products and things you have coming out, just next level thinking, man. Really next level. So thank you. That's quite a compliment coming from you. Thank you.
Well, you know what? I wanted to get you on the channel for a long time.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to. You are the person that's behind a lot of the stuff that you see coming out, or you've had your fingers in. You've had some part to play in a lot of the big releases that have come out over the last several years. If not completely heading up the project, you've had a considerable amount of input. So. Sure. Which is a huge responsibility, and
it is
not a responsibility.
If it goes well, everything's good. If it doesn't,
yeah, I can imagine.
Hide behind my desk. Yeah,
man, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be watching this that are new into Magic, and they want to be the next Shim Lin. They want to be the man, and I'm hoping to pick your brains and get some advice for these new creators about how they can actually make a name for themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But before we do that, I need to find out more about you because this is an interview about you. So I want to find out more about you. Now, I know you've been in Magic for a very long time.
Yeah.
You're talking off camera that you did your first paid show when you were 10 years old, but I want to know what your origin story was, because I think it's important for people to realize you're not just the guy at Murphy's that's doing purchasing and creating and everything. You're a performer in your own right. And I think it's important for people to understand that. You don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk and then some. Right. So tell us about your origin story, Patrick. When did you first get into Magic?
Yeah, well, I was probably 8 years old, I think. And I saw I saw Ronald McDonald at an opening of a McDonald's. And he did sponge balls, and I was sitting pretty close to the front row, and I just remember, them appearing in this girl's hand, and everyone just going crazy. And I was thinking, I couldn't stop obsessing over that, even at that age. I mean, I can remember taking because he was wearing gloves. I remember like putting, the red gloves around. I remember taking a glove and putting a little slit in it and going, I wonder if he's getting the ball like this, or just think of all these. So my mom finally, I drove her crazy after I cut up all their gloves and everything. So we went to a magic shop, and they did sponge balls, and I was the spectator at that point. And it's very, very true. What happens in your spectator's hand is very powerful. So I got some sponge balls, a ball vase, all the stuff you get when you're 8 years old. And that was it, man. I mean, we had there's a guy who, I don't know if you're familiar with the holiday hat bag. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Yeah, it's a children's performance piece. And that was invented by Jim Jays.
Oh, wow.
So you've probably seen ones like that where they turn inside out. It's this hat, you turn inside out again, it's another hat.
Yes.
Yes. So he actually lived about a mile from my house. So, and he was older than me, so my brothers went to school with him. And so he kind of mentored me in magic when, as I was almost to 10 years old or a little older. And so we actually did, when I did my first show was in 1976, I'm 55 now. It was Gemini. So we did the show together, and I still have, I could have brought a little poster and stuff, but they had all that for 1976, you know. So I've been doing it quite a while, and yeah, that's kind of how I got started, you know, just seeing Ronald McDonald do the sponge balls, and I just obsessed over it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you carry on? Were you just as passionate about magic all the way through school and college? Because I speak to a lot of people and they go, you know what, I fell out of magic for a while. I met girls and then I came back into it.
That's a great question. And so, you know, a couple of years later, I got the Bill Bixby magic kit for Christmas, and I was like, phew, that was it. And I got into it so heavy up until about junior high. And when I was in junior high, my oldest brother met a girl who was in the neighborhood, and they ended up getting married. And they're still married to today. And when we would go over to their family's house, they had a drum set, which was her brother's in the garage. And I went, oh. So I get there and start playing drums. And one day they just got tired of hearing me play it over there. So she said, would you like to take the drums home? And I was like, yes. So she gave me the drum set. So I really got into playing drums and got into music. And I'm trying to make this story as short and compact as I can.
Take your time.
Yeah. So it just so happens, and this has kind of been a strange kind of theme in my life, that I just happened to get in with a group of guys who went on to do really big things in music. So, you know, guys who have played and toured and written with Prince and Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson. And so these were guys I went to school with, and, you know, Lionel Richie, and they're still out there doing it today, right? So I was, you know, as being their friends and still doing this whole music thing, they would invite me backstage to meet all the stars and James Brown and all this, and I was just it. So I went down to LA, and you know, Craig, I gotta say, man, I didn't really realize it then fully. I think I did, but I didn't want to face it. I didn't have what it took to be a musician. And I was a fantastic drummer, humbly, but I was. I just put all, like when guys were at parties, I was at home in the garage practicing paradiddles and everything on the steps of the garage. I mean, I just put every waking moment into it. But the thing was, you know, I had a lot of, I wasn't good at conversation. I wasn't good. I remember going to some parties down there, and boy, I was just anxiety about talking to people. I didn't have, and you have to, you know, the whole thing about that industry and this industry, you had mentioned earlier about giving advice to people. You know, if you're in a shell and you're not good at, you've got to break out of that shell. And so rather than break out of that shell, I just kind of went, I can't do this. And I was very, actually kind of depressed, because I just came to that realization that all these guys I know, and they're my friends, right? I was the quiet guy, and they were the schmoozers, and oh man, yeah, let me get your number. I was not that guy at all. So they did their thing, and ended up being my last trip in music to Los Angeles. And we were at a recording studio, and there was an artist named Chucky Booker. And he was Janet Jackson's musical director at the time. He was putting out a second album. So we're sitting there listening to the music, great music's coming out of the studio. And all of a sudden, man, everyone went, stop, it's 9 o'clock. And like in studios, you know, they're paying for that. So it's a big deal. So everyone stopped, man. And I was just sitting there going, what's going on? You know, I hadn't seen something like that happen, like where everyone was just like, so they all ran out into one of these sitting rooms, the big leather couches. And back then they had this, you know, those huge 5-ton televisions that we used to have. Well, they had one of those sitting there, and they were like, come on, man, come on, it's almost time, it's almost time. So they pressed on the button, and it said, welcome to the magic of David Copperfield. And I went, huh? I was just looking at these guys, and it was, I think it was the Orient Express, maybe, where I remember them, one guy going up and touching the television, all the cards dropping, and, you know, food's flying everywhere and drinks, and everyone's like, ah, you know, doing this whole thing. And I thought, huh? I mean, look at all these guys, and this is the reaction they're getting. And I mean, they're big guys in their own right. So when I got home, you know, I had some roommates, and about 3 days later, just out of the blue, my mom called me, and she said, hey, honey, you know, your dad was cleaning the attic and found a bunch of that old magic stuff you had. Do you still want that? I was like, yeah. So that's how I got back into magic. And one of the guys I had actually met, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, how old were you at that point, Patrick?
I was, I was probably 22 at that time, right around 22. And so a few years went by, and I got working in a grocery store, which was hard for me because all I wanted to do was be out and play music. But at the same time, I was learning and really getting into, again, magic. So I was showing all the guys on the crew magic tricks, and they're like, you know, simple, you know, invisible dead, you know, all that kind of thing, right? So, you know, I was kind of doing that. Then one of my friends who I'd known for 35 years, and I'd met through music, I've known 35 years right to this day. Back then, I hadn't known him that long. I had known him maybe 10, 15 years. And he said, this was later on, this was maybe 10, 15 years, about 15 years after this whole supermarket thing. I was working in the supermarket, and he calls me and he goes, hey, what's going on? It's been a while. I'm like, hey, how are you doing? He goes, I'm doing great, man. You know, I just moved back into town, and his partner, his name's Damone. He worked for, I don't know if you knew Damone. Damone worked for Murphy's, and his partner Todd for a while worked at Penguin.
Really?
Yeah, and he said, you know, we're living. This guy just moved in from Vermont next to us. His name's Tim Trono. Do you know him? And I said, no, I've never heard of Tim Trono. So he goes, he works for this place called Murphy's Magic. And I was like, oh, wow. And he goes, I knew you were into magic and stuff. So Tim ended up getting Damone a job there. So Damone had been working there for maybe 5 or 6 years. And one day he called me. He was like, Patrick, man, you would love working here. Why don't you? And I wasn't ready at the time to leave a job with, you know, I had union benefits and all this kind of stuff. And I was really, you know, I had a family at this point, right? I'm married, I have children. So, but a couple calls later, I just took a leap of faith and jumped over there. And that's been almost 15 years ago. So, wow. Yeah, I hope it's boring of a story, but that's kind of how, yeah, that's kind of how I went from, I started in magic and then kind of drifted into music. And then, you know, if it weren't for the people I'd met in music, I wouldn't be at Murphy's. Right. I mean, yeah, I more than likely, I wouldn't be there. Yeah.
You just never know, do you, man?
You never know. That's the thing. You never know. And, you know, I finally found out that A1 was in Sacramento, which, you know, I'd had, you know, the Magic Michael Lamar and all these books that they had been producing over there. But when, I think that was actually L&L possibly, but a lot of the A1 stuff. And then I looked one day at the back of a cassette and it said Sunrise, Sacramento, Sunrise Boulevard. And I was like, really? So I went over there and checked that out and found the local magic shop and just started really getting into the whole magic thing even deeper. And yeah, that's how I got back in.
Before you joined Murphy's, were you going out doing gigs as well, or was it more of a So tell me your experience.
No, it's funny because I was very, very shy. I mean, very, very shy guy. And what had happened was, while I was working at Bel Air, which is it's a big chain here in Sacramento and the surrounding areas. They started needing someone with a cooking background to do shows. I didn't really know there were going to be like shows. So I was like, well, my mom was a caterer, and I said, she's a fantastic cook. So I was, tired of working in the register and all that. So I said, yeah, whatever. So I put my name in there, and I sat down with a gal named Nicole Letty, and she said, I think you'd be perfect for this. I mean, you just, I was always like the nice, pleasant guy, smiling, doing all that kind of stuff, but just not outgoing. So when I got that job, it forced me, because I didn't really know what I was signing up for. But when I did that, they would have me go out to like state fairs, county fairs, like when you walk into the building and there's that guy sitting there with the big mirror over him, do it. Well, that's what I was doing, teaching people how to cook. So, I mean, the first few times I did, I was like sweating bullets. I'm like, just trying not to cut my fingers off. So I did that, and I did that for about 5 years. And that, I really got out of my shell then, because I was forced to be in front of people. And so it really helped me when I was performing magic, because I knew magic, right? I could fake cooking, and I learned a lot, because I would go with a lot of I had the opportunity, I should say, to cook side by side with celebrity chefs like Martin Yan and Jim LaPerriere and Jane Kennedy, and so that was another great opportunity I had in my life, right? And what that did was it opened me up to not being afraid to be in front of a crowd by myself. It's one thing being when you have a band in front of you and then you're behind the drums. That's one thing. When you're on a stage by yourself, as you know, it's a totally different thing. And then to raise the bar even more, I remember speaking to Chris Kenner about this a long time ago. And I never realized it until he had said it, was that, when you're out there performing as a magician, you're basically saying, I can perform the impossible. You're just not doing tricks. And that takes it to a whole other level. I mean, so when you see a magician, and things happen. I mean, I've seen some of the biggest magicians in the world have mistakes on stage. It happens. But it just really makes you prepare because you're not just cooking, cooking a stir fry or something. You're really putting yourself on the line as, I'm going to do the impossible, right? And it's a whole other level on top of that, because you don't want to fall flat doing the impossible, right? So, that was a whole other thing. Then I had my journey in magic, and trying to find myself as the magician in magic. And I did the same thing almost everyone does who starts, especially in the day and age of, we were talking earlier about L&L and A1 when they started with putting out the tapes. I remember stealing jokes from Doc Eason, and they didn't go over well because I didn't have that personality. So I tried that once and it failed. And, wanting to be the David Copperfield or whatever. And it took me a while to find myself in magic. And that's a whole other thing. I mean, magic is really so, it's a very complex art form, Yeah. They always say, find your character, find yourself. And, again, sometimes the best advice can sting, right? But I'm an overweight guy. I haven't always been that. When I graduated high school, I was only 120 pounds. Now I'm over twice that, right? So again, I remember Kenner saying to me one time, he said, well, how do you expect people to think you can control everything around you, but you can't control your own weight? And I went, poof. It's so true, right? So that character that I wanted to be, when I really looked at myself in the mirror, I went, yeah. You're not going to be that suave rose guy, you know, because that's not who you are. That's who you want to be. And, you know, if you were dedicated enough to losing that weight or doing whatever you wanted to do to kind of fit that bill, that's one thing, but I wasn't, you know. So, you know, what I do now in Magic really suits me. It fits me. I'm a behind the scenes guy. I help a lot of magicians with their acts and products, and I enjoy doing that. I'll do a gig once in a while to keep fresh, but I really stopped traveling. I mean, I went to Blackpool once.
I remember
And
coming to Blackpool and being really ill.
I got really sick. I ended up being in the hospital actually, and it was like a methadone clinic. It was like, because we didn't know anything about where.
So I remember saying to Kathy and Michelle, "Where's Patrick? Where's Patrick?" And she went, "He's in his hotel room. He's just feeling terrible." I'm like,
Oh,
"No,
yeah.
I was wanting to hang out with him."
Yeah, I got real mad. Gosh, that was such a crazy. That was a crazy story too. So the night before we were leaving, I was at home and it was just me and my daughter at the time, who was 3 years old, and I was eating sushi, and it got caught in my throat and I couldn't breathe. And so I tried to give myself the high, like on a chair and all this, and then I just start sweating and panicking. So I don't know if you've ever had the experience of not like having that airway cut off.
Yeah.
So I just did the only thing I could, man. I just bent over and I took chopsticks and I slowly pulled it out. I know that was crazy because everyone was like, you could have pushed it, you know, down further and all this, but it came out. But what happened was it put so much like stress and pressure on my throat that it broke all these vessels or whatever. So I was doomed going over there in the first place. You know what I mean?
Man.
And then I got sick on top of it. So it was just bad. It was bad on top of that, bro.
Man.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
I want to talk to you about your journey in Murphy's, but before I do, I need to pick up on one thing that you said there.
Yeah.
Is obviously you were a kind of a shy, nervous guy, and yet you pushed yourself out your comfort zone, and you were gigging and you were doing gigging. You don't do as many these days, but have you got any advice on dealing with nerves? Because it's something that I think magic attracts a lot of people that are kind of maybe, I don't want to say socially inept. I know I can only, yeah. I mean, I was not a very outgoing kid at school, and that's what appealed to me about magic. And I think a lot of people are the same. And so when it gets to a point where you kind of have to step out your bedroom and do it in front of people, we've all experienced those shaky hands, the sweats, the nerves, and it's like,
yes. And well, I came down with a condition. Oh boy, 15, almost 20 years ago now. It's called an internal tremor. So my hands, if I try and let me see that, I'm not trying to do that. Like if I try and put my fingers together, they shake. And it has nothing to do with nerves or being nervous. That's just what happens. So I stopped close-up magic altogether just because it makes the audience uncomfortable, right? They see someone shaking and they go, "Oh, poor thing, you're so nervous," or whatever. And that wasn't the case. You know, when I got older, it was this condition. So, yeah, I know about the shaky hands. I know about that, but nerves, when nerves brings that song, that's a whole other thing. And, you know, I just take Copperfield's advice and do as many gigs as you possibly can. But I have to say, the one thing that I think will eliminate 80% of the nerves that people have out there is rehearsal, not practice, right? We practice moves all the time, but there's a difference between practicing and rehearsing. Rehearsing is actually chewing gum and walking at the same time, right? And for a lot of years, I didn't even want to record myself rehearsing because it was so hard for me to watch myself perform and mumble over words. But if you don't do that, you're going to be mumbling in front of people, which is even worse, right? It's way worse. So, and two, like we were talking about earlier, you know, the magic industry has changed a lot. And now most of the, I guess, yeah, the products that we buy, people want to open them and boom, just start working. You know, they don't want to look at the instructions. They don't want to really practice. They don't. And without doing those things, yeah, you can perform the trick. You can perform the trick. But when you're performing trick after trick and knowing how to segue and knowing prop management and knowing, when I get gigs, a lot of people will tell me, man, you are so funny. You are so funny. Oh my gosh, everyone was rolling and laughing. And I'm not a funny guy. I'm not. One thing I think is a huge mistake, unless you are like super, super funny, is calling yourself a comedy magician. Because everyone has a certain sense of what comedy is. And if you aren't hitting that for half your audience, you are a failed comedy magician. So it's better to be just the magician and have people walk away, even if both sets of that audience only laughed at half of your stuff, let's say, you're still very funny to them. Yeah. But the jokes I have are all setup stuff. It's just set up, and whatever they say, I've got a line for it, and it makes you look funny. So, it's not, a lot of it isn't, it appears to the audience that everything's just happening in the moment, but it's all scripted. I tell people, if you saw 10 of my shows in a row, you'd see me do the same lines in the same places, but it's new to new audiences, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all, I forget, that's who it was. I was watching, boy, another great magician, Johnny Ace Palmer.
I remember. Yeah.
Man, so there's one of him performing. Maybe it was filmed, I don't know, 6 years ago at a banquet. And you know how it is when you're on YouTube, you just kind of rabbit hole. Well, it had something of him performing again, like 10 years before that, and then maybe 5-6 years before that. So we're going back, almost 20 years, the exact same act. So he's been doing the exact same act for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And it is better now. It was always great, but it's just, after you do the same thing for 20 years. And today with a lot of magicians, we're always trying to do new things and what's new, which is great because we learn from that, but if you want to be the next Shin Lim or the next guy, you have to know who you are. You have to know what your act is about. Everything has to come together, but yeah.
I completely agree. And I love the advice about not calling yourself a comedy magician. I've never heard that before, and that's so true. 100%, 100%. So you've been at Murphy's now for 15 years.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
When has your role changed now compared to when you first started?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you first started at Murphy's, so you kind of, Tim got you this job. And it's kind of like you take a giant leap of faith and you're like, right, okay, I've got comfort, I've got security, I know what's going on. I'm going to take a shot in the dark. You're obviously right. Okay, I've got to make this work. When you first got to Murphy's, what were you doing? Were you?
I was a sales rep I was making at the time less money than I was making at the grocery store, which was very difficult, right? It was almost like, oh, what have I got myself into here? But that changed over the years, which is good. And so I started there being a sales rep, and that's how I got to know all you guys, because World Magic Shop was one of my accounts. And so, I was on the horn with Jim Trainer 2-3 times a week, cutting up and talking about things. And then there was an opening for Tim basically needed an assistant because at the time it was just becoming too overwhelming. So he asked if I wanted to come over and kind of be his assistant and break the purchasing apart. I'd do part of it, he would. I was like, absolutely. So I went over there about 4 years later, and about a year and a half after that, Tim left. So here I am on this tightrope, like, what do I do now? Because there's no net and it's, just me out here. And, I just really wanted to, I guess, prove myself and show, I could do what, my predecessors, all the my predecessors had done. And I worked really hard, man. And, even now, it's Murphy's, it's one of those jobs in the purchasing, like what I do in the creative end of it, when you're dealing with artists all the times and, I got to come up with this product. And blah, blah. I hate to say it's a 24-hour job, but it kind of is, because there are people in all these different time zones around the world, and you're doing calls at all different, sometimes I get somebody calling me at 2 a.m. here or 3 a.m. here, which they don't really realize it is, because it's the afternoon where they're out. They're like, hey, my friend, how are you? I'm like, huh? Who's this? And, I've never wanted to be one of those guys to lose the call, if that makes sense. So I pick up a lot of the things, when my phone's around. And, I have had to put up some barriers, because it was driving my wife crazy, just doing a lot of, it was taking over too much of my life. And there's one thing about being, dedicated to what you're doing, but and that was another lesson I learned, man. I love my family, and my kids come first. My wife comes first. My family comes, before magic. And so, I'm blessed to have the family and my children, and and my career as well. But it has taken a backseat to my family, which that wasn't always the case. And I don't say that pridefully. It just wasn't always the case, But at the same time, I had to work really hard to get where I am.
Yeah, and I can tell, and I think people need to understand that watching this, everybody, like everyone. I know that if I said to you, can you put me in touch with this guy, you'd be able to, because like everyone, you knew Shin Lim when Shin Lim was a kid, and like you've seen people come up through the ranks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Wow, I mean, you're so well connected, which is
well, thank you. Yeah, a lot of that is, because I work for Murphy's, right? But I've again, people have been very kind to me and introduced me to people. And so, beside Murphy's too, just making friends like we all do in magic. Yeah, it's been quite a journey, and that's changed me. That's really changed me, because I forgot who I was talking to like a year ago about this, but I was so, I mean, gosh, it's almost embarrassing to say this, but I was so obsessed with like Copperfield, and he's great. I mean, he to me, my generation, he's still the greatest magician that's ever come out. He's so much for magic. But I remember like the first time he called my house and his name popped up on the television screen. I mean, I was like, I wasn't expecting it or anything. I was like, this can't be real. This can't be real, And what that really did for me is getting to know a lot of these guys, and meeting them and them being, very kind to me. And, they're just people who've worked really hard and to get where they're at. And they're smart. I mean, they're all smart guys. And I can say this about Copperfield, Shin Lim, Chris Angel, all the guys that we know in our industry as being top guys and have stood the test of time, right? Basically. If we didn't know them in magic, we would have known their names for something else.
Yeah.
Because they all have this thing in common, that they do not stop. They're all like this. I mean, they don't stop. They don't sit back and just chill and go, oh, I'm just going to watch TV for 4 hours and grab some Doritos. And, maybe after that, I'll take a nap. But no. I mean, these guys are I mean, look, like again, look at Copperfield. I mean, the guy does what, like 600 shows a year. He's a billionaire. I mean, I would have retired a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
But he's still, because he's got that fire in him still. I mean, I don't know if you're born with it or if it's a learned thing or if something happens during your childhood. I don't know what it is, but that became very clear to me after a while. And I went, wow. So in order to really make it, and I mean, you know, the term 15 minutes of fame is there for a reason. A lot of people you can get on AGT, you can do a lot of things, and that is it. That's your 15 minutes of fame. And you can show people for the next 20 years, look, I was on AGT or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. It's a great achievement. It's achievement just to get to that point. But the guys that we know and have been primarily the guys most magicians look up to, and seasons change, you know, there'll be someone else coming through, you know, you have the Dynamos too, they're just everyone out there who's doing their thing, man, they just don't stop. They just don't stop. And it's never enough is never enough kind of a thing. And not really in a bad way. It's just they're always pushing themselves to do more and to do better and to be more creative. And yeah, so you know, that getting to that level isn't just like, oh, I'm gonna buy 52 shades of red and learn it, and no, it's not really how that works, you know. Yeah. And I think that's a big misconception because, you know, when I was reading Magic magazine and Genie magazine in my earlier years, I remember seeing and reading so many things that kind of, you know, and I'm not saying it was purposefully done, but just the way I took it was like, you know, these are like the premier greatest magicians and, you know, all this stuff. And a lot of times the guys on the cover or the guys you're reading about, it's not 100% the case. You know, I think a lot of people were being kind, and which happens in all industries. You know, they have to have someone new on the cover. But as someone who doesn't know the other side of the industry, who doesn't know them, who are reading these articles, sometimes the advice in there, to me anyway, it wasn't great advice. You know, they can talk about like their personal journey and stuff, but as far as, you know, getting advice on getting gigs or doing this and that, some of it to me anyway wasn't great advice. You know,
yeah,
I kind of there a little, sorry.
But, no, it's fantastic advice. And it's like I said to you before, you know, just before we started filming, you have the coolest job in the world. You have the best job in the world. Yeah. I mean, man, you know, you get to meet everyone. You get to play with all the latest toys. You get to decide what toys that other people play with. I mean,
yeah,
right? That's,
what more could I ask for?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's another thing. You know, it's really interesting because you know, once in a while I might see a comment of, you know, Murphy's carries, you know, too much stuff, or this isn't, you know, a great trick, whatever. And one thing I really had to put aside when I started in purchasing was my personal choice and my personal taste in magic. I had to put that aside, and I had to learn what magicians want to buy, because a lot of times there are two different things. I'd look at this and I'd say, well, geez, well, that's not practical. I don't want to do that. Well, it wasn't practical for me because I perform in this kind of environment, and I wasn't taking into consideration, you know, all the other ways and styles that guys performed. So I had to throw all that away and kind of look at, you know, what I used to say all the time was, one man's junk is another man's treasure. And that's how, you know, I really started having to study like the magic market. And that has helped me over the years. So when people see a lot of stuff on Murphy's site, you know, the truth is, I mean, they may be seeing 30% of what comes through.
Yeah, and I want to get into this a little bit, because I've got thoughts on this. And
Yeah.
the first thing I want to say is, you guys turn away a lot of material, don't you? I mean, there's a perception out there that Murphy's buys everything and they'll say yes to everything, but that is absolutely not the case. Like, you know, there's I wouldn't like to see the amount of stuff that just gets, no, you got, you know, I think people need to understand that, right?
Yes, and so it was funny, just as we are talking, Mark Murphy was messaging me. You know, the funny thing is, just 3 days ago, I filled an entire pallet of samples that was in my office space. So when I went to talk to someone, they went, "Oh my gosh, you know, it looks so nice over here." And it cycles. I mean, in a month from now, I'll have to kind of be able to get to my chair through going through boxes and stuff, because we get so much stuff, and not only physical products, it's, you know, videos, and, you know, a lot of people go, "Hey, I have this idea. I want to put this product out. How should I do it? And can you help? And, you know, is it worth coming out?" And, you know, and a lot of times people come out with something that's been done, and they'll say, "I've got a totally brand new original thing." Well, it's original because they don't know a lot of the magic that's come out before them, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's weeding through a lot of that. And yeah, so they only see about 30% of what we really get offered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I used to, I've one that's been outspoken in the past about quality control at Murphy's. And
Yeah.
the thing is, I had 2 conversations recently, which
Yes.
kind of changed my mind about this a little bit. And the first
Yeah.
conversation I had was with our friend David Penn.
Mm.
And he reminded me that about 10 years ago on the Wizard Product Review, myself and David reviewed this electronic dove thing, which was the worst trick in the world. The worst trick in the world. We ripped it to shreds.
Yeah.
I did an old school rant on it. Who would release something like this?
Yeah.
And then the same trick has been used by somebody to get through to the finals of Got Talents. And it's kind of like, well, hang on a minute. How can I say that this did, for me, that trick was terrible and awful, and I can rant about why have Murphy's released there.
Yes.
Somebody else has seen this and bought it and got through to the finals of Got Talent using that exact same prop that I'm moaning shouldn't have ever been released.
Well, you know, it's funny, and it's funny you bring that up, because it goes back to one man's junk is another man's treasure.
Mm-hmm.
But there's 2 other things, because I remember that episode, because I was the guy who brought that in. I was. And I remember laughing because I thought to myself, they have no idea how many of these we've sold. And I mean, Murphy's, before anything, it's a business. If we're not producing, and if we're not bringing in money and selling products, what good am I? I mean, that's when it comes down to it, we can bring in a product that's going to sell 10 units or 10,000 units. So it's weeding through the ones, and it's nothing I would use, but that is an example of what I was talking about earlier, what I had to change, because I would have thrown that away and said, "Oh no, I'm not bringing that in. I'm just no." But we've sold thousands and we keep selling them. I don't know what people are doing with them. I have no idea. I really don't. But it looked pretty cool.
You're prepared to buy them. Who are you to say we're not stocking them? And that's the other thing. I said there were 2 things that happened. The other one was a conversation with Lloyd Barnes. Mm. And Lloyd turned around to me and he said, you got to understand that Murphy's is a wholesaler.
That's right.
Their job is to just get something and wholesale it out. When you look at quality, and he used an example, he said, look at Costco. He said, look at Costco. A person who is a shop owner will go into Costco and buy the stuff they want to sell in their shop. If there's something that they don't think their customers will like maybe it's really cheap toilet paper, they won't buy it.
That's correct.
But you can't have a go at Costco for selling cheap toilet paper if your customers are unhappy about it because you made a choice to buy it. So, and Lloyd said that to me, and I kind of then went, well, actually, mate, I see where you're coming from, because you know, but you know, ultimately, is it down to the end consumer to do their due diligence and look at the reviews? Is it down to the
Yes.
magic shop
Well,
to, you know?
right. Well, those are fantastic questions, Craig, and there's some great insight there. You know, as far as all the different products, people have to understand, and sometimes they get us confused about us being a wholesaler. They'll look at, you know, I don't know, they'll look at maybe a storefront, a retailer, magic retailer, and go, oh man, their site's so cool, and they sell this and they sell that. Yeah, but we sell to places that also sell clown stuff. And we're a wholesaler. We have a very wide variety of products that we try and bring in for everyone. And I have to say though, I wasn't done with when I saw you respond to that dove. Because I got to tell you something else that happened. It really made me sit back in my seat when you said that. And I thought, wow, okay, we're selling a lot of these. It's doing good. But maybe I got to start looking at what I'm bringing in a little more. And maybe I have to start looking at making sure that everything that I bring in works just the way it says it's going to work. Now, right before I got there, when Tim was there, he needed someone to help him. And the reason was we didn't have all the sophisticated computer systems we have now. A lot of stuff was, boy, it would take forever just to get one product in the system. And so for one person to try and do all this back then was boy, very taskful. So he needed someone. And what was going on was at the time, and you probably remember this period of time, there were a lot of products coming out that it was the beginning of like the cool trader, guy walking down the rail tracks, but then the products didn't do what they said they were going to do. And unfortunately, people in the company were so busy just trying to get the task end of it down and trying to bring in the new thing before someone else did, that we really didn't have time to look at it and go, okay, does it actually work this way? Can I see a sample of that? I want to see it at this angle. Send me that. And it would just bring it in, bring it in, bring it in. And a lot of people were buying Magic because these new trailers that were coming out at the time were very exciting to see, because we really didn't have trailers before. And they were shot at just the perfect angle, the perfect light. And then people would get at home, they'd be, this really isn't. And so it really made me, your comment really made me go, okay, let's put the brakes on a little bit. Let's make sure the products we bring in. And so I've really tried to be very diligent with that and flip that around. So in the past maybe 8 years, I mean, I don't really see products now that we bring in that people go, oh, it doesn't work like it says it does.
No.
You know, I tried to get rid of that whole thing that was going on for such a long time. And hence that we only put out 30% of what we bring in now, because, you know, sometimes someone will show me something and I'll go, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That looks great. So, you know, I know quite a few methods. How is this being done? Oh, yeah. My dog off camera holding a hair dryer on a ball. What I'm going, okay, well, we obviously can't sell that.
Yeah.
You know, thank you very much. You know, but we get stuff. I don't want to say that ridiculous, but people again just think of something and they go, I wonder if I can sell that. They're not aware of the market. Or
I mean, I see stuff these days because I review stuff every week. I see stuff that I don't like, that I think is bad magic, but that's subjective to me. I don't see anything that isn't fit for purpose.
Right.
Generally, as a rule, everything's fit for purpose, you know. And the other thing to note is I've seen Murphy's pull stuff. Like, if something happens and it's not fit for purpose, I've seen you over and over again pull stuff off the shelves like almost immediately. I
Yeah.
think people need to understand that there's that constant. I've said in the past, there's no quality control. There is quality control. There's more quality control than people could realize. Like you say, 30%, but also beyond that when it starts selling, right?
Yeah, and Craig, that's a, I don't know if we're gonna have, I don't think we're gonna have time because it's an extremely deep subject. But the whole walking this gray line between white and black of what can be released and what can't be released. It's too close to this. No, it's not. Just sitting there, because I've had to mediate between guys a lot of times, and I'll say, you know what, I need a break. I'm gonna come back tomorrow. I'm really gonna give this a lot of thought. And there have been times, I've seen us throw $20,000 worth of product away. That's, yeah, man.
And you've taken the hit on that. I mean,
we take a hit on it. Oh yeah, and it's happened more than once. But at the same time, Paul Harris had a trick, and it was taking him a while to come out. It was sitting in our warehouse. It was about $10,000 worth of stuff. And while it was sitting there, we were waiting for the assets, which assets are like, this, but the trailers, the ad copy, the images, all that kind of stuff that people see on the net to describe the trick. Waiting for the assets. Someone else released a trick that was exactly the same. And so Paul went, well, there's no way I can release this now. I mean, my assets aren't going to be done for 2 more weeks. Everyone's going to think I copied this. Toss it away. So all the time he put into it, all the effort, all the money, all that, it went into a dumpster, dude. I know. But a lot of people, they just don't, especially a guy like Paul, he has a really good reputation. And one thing about Paul Harris is really interesting. Paul he has been such an innovator, especially for close-up magic. Sure. And his products and the products he puts out, you haven't seen anything come out from Paul in almost 2 years, or maybe a little over 2 years. And one of the reasons is that, he'll work on something and then someone else will come out with something close and he'll toss it away, because he's very much a perfectionist. And he always, he's never said this to me, but I think he always wants to be known as the innovator, or, somebody who comes out with something kind of completely new, different, fun. And he's done that. And at times it's costed him tens, 20, 30, 40, $50,000, but he's Paul Harris, right?
Yeah.
And, that's important, that reputation in our magic industry as a creator. If you want to have legs in this industry and last a long time, you really have to be careful of what you put out. A lot of people just want to use our industry as kind of the cash cow. I've got something next week, something else, 2 weeks later, something else, another week after, something else. The problem with that is it's just like if a songwriter's putting out songs, your first 5 songs, you might have worked on them for 5 years. And then after that, you start making money. You go, geez, I'll throw out another one next week. Well, you didn't take 5 years producing that. You had an idea, you rushed through it, you made a cool trailer, you threw it out, but it wasn't as great as your earlier stuff. And after that happens over and over, people start going, geez, I'm not sure if I want to buy something from this brand or this company, because they're hit and miss, and sometimes more miss than hit. Even though the trailer looks amazing and I want to do that, I'd love to be able to perform something like this. I just don't know. And the companies end up either folding or selling very little magic. Now, on the flip side of that, you have other people who don't put out a lot of magic, but what they put out is great magic, and that sells a lot. You could look at Richard Sanders. Look at all the great products he's come out with.
He's never come out with anything but a hit.
Every 3 years or something, but when he does, man, it's a hit with a rocket. It goes like that, and it stays there. And so we have guys like Paul Harris, guys like Shin. Shin puts out a great product, and they don't put out a lot of product, but when they do, it's very well thought out, and they stand the test of time. So if there are people out there who want to be a producer of magic or an artist, and just like anything else, our industry is just like the music industry. There's so many things to do in it. You can be the guy who plays, cover tunes, which is buying a product and you're performing that product. It's kind of like someone else writing a song and you're performing the song in a bar where you're performing it. It's kind of cover tunes. It's kind of the same kind of thing. You could be the guy who invents things. You could be the guy behind the scenes who just invents things and puts them out there for performers to do. Like I've got something great I want to sell to David Blaine, or you could be the guy who just makes the guitars in the factory, right? There's all these different places for you in the world of magic where you don't have to be the guy in front if you don't want to be, but just find your niche and make as many contacts and friends and be a good person. That's all very important. And you'll find yourself where you want to be someday, but a lot of my good fortune really has come from just knowing very kind people, nice people who are willing to take a chance on me. Because when I first walked into Murphy's, I couldn't say, I work for Illusionist, and then I went over to Theory 11, and like a lot of guys do, I was like, I know how to work a cash register at a grocery chain. I can teach you how to cook, and I love magic and I know about magic, but I don't know how to sell magic. I don't know how to purchase magic. I don't know, I've never been like a sales person. I've never been a purchaser. So it was a lot of on the job training and a lot of Mark Murphy, who's a brilliant businessman and a nice guy. He's he sat down with me many times and just kind of held my hand and said, all right, let's do this. And before we do this next time, let's try it this way. That way we don't have to throw $20,000 in magic away, Yeah, boss. Very much, But it's all on the job training at Murphy's. And the truth is, and you can ask George, Javier, you can ask Luke Dancy, you can ask all the guys who are with Murphy's right now. It's on the job training, and no matter how much you think you know about magic and the industry, you're going to learn a lot more working at Murphy's. You just are. It's just the way it is,
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question. You mentioned artists. It is everybody's dream to become the next Richard Sanders or the next Shin Lim, somebody who's releasing, because we do. Yeah. And we've done it ever since I can think. We put creators on a pedestal, don't we? You come into this industry and it's like, Greg Wilson has just brought out this new trick. Oh my God, I love Greg Wilson. And it's that pedestal thing. Now, for people watching this, as far as I'm aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert here, there's 3 ways to get a product released through Murphy's. And realistically, generally as a rule, if you're looking to make a name for yourself in magic, you want your product to go in through Murphy's. Because obviously it's going to go everywhere. It's going to go to every magic shop around the world. Yeah. Whilst if you release it and it's not gone into Murphy's, it's going to have a very limited range of people it goes to. And there's three ways, isn't there? The first way is you go to Murphy's directly. The second way is you go to a production company somebody like a 1914 or somebody who puts their stuff into Murphy's. And then the third way is to produce it yourself and then sell it to Murphy's.
Correct. Yeah.
So those are the only 3 ways. For somebody who wants to make a name for themselves, what's the best approach if they think they've got a kick-ass trick. Let's not talk about downloads for now. If they've got a kick-ass trick, they've got no experience of releasing magic before, what's the best way to do it?
Well, I think, contacting someone in the business who knows about the business, right? You've been around a long time, you know about the business, you know about all the ins and outs. And someone who is very trustworthy, that's very important, very trustworthy. And before I go further, I would even go as far as to say, don't put it on Twitter, don't put it on Instagram, don't put it anywhere where the world can see and someone take it, produce it before you can, and now you're copying them. So don't put it on social media. That would be my personal advice. Go to someone who you can trust, who's in the business, show them, and they'll be able to lead you in the right direction. If it's to a company like Murphy's, if it's to a producer like 1914, if it's to, a few other ways you might get your product out there. Because I've seen people make the mistake many times of contacting me and saying, hey, I have this great trick. It's right here. And I want to sell it to you. And I say, oh, great. Okay. Well, I look at the trick and I go, oh, okay. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I've seen plenty of tricks like that. They sell for $25. Oh, looks good. So what are your plans with it? We have a conversation and come to find out, oh, I've already made it. Oh, you have? Oh, okay. Well, how many units do you have? I have 3,000 right now. Okay. What's my cost? Oh, your cost is going to be $20 a unit. Well, if we're going to purchase it at that, the retail is going to be 50. You just made something that that's already been on the market basically and has been selling for half the price for 10 years. I mean, I'll bring someone to help you, but I just want to let you know now that I'm not sure what your sales are going to be like. I'll have to see the trailer. I'll have to see if you do something new with this device. But as of right now, that's kind of where it stands. A lot of people, boy, they get, it's kind of devastating. But the best thing they can do before they invest money, before they do all that, find someone trustworthy and say, does this have a start? And just as well, because we were doing it earlier, we're just kind of jamming on things, Craig. Someone who trusts you, you might show them something. They go, it'd be really good. Instead of, this, if you do it with on the back of a coin or a poker chip or a card or something, instead of having it on a billet or whatever. And you go, oh, that's a great idea. Well, you can kind of jam with someone you trust, and can work out those things with someone, So.
That's really good advice.
I hope that's your question.
And it's very difficult. I mean, Murphy's produce their own stuff. You've got your own team, George, Titanus, Matt, Javier, Lloyd, obviously.
Yep.
And obviously the quality of those products, I mean, they have to be good, right? For Murphy to actually put their name to it, it has to be. In order to get Murphy's to bring something out themselves, I mean, I've been trying for 15 years and I've only just got here now. Like, for somebody to go directly to Murphy's, it's not an easy. You have to make sure. Can somebody who's never released anything before get on the creatives team's radar, or is it worthwhile building a reputation up with smaller stuff first, or
Yeah, I think both are okay. I mean. Like I say, I think it's the thought you put into each individual product, really. If you produce it yourself, or if you have it produced by Murphy's or a third-party company, it's the thought that everyone puts into it. I mean, when I am going to put a product out, release a product, boy, I really try and think of like everything. And again, that was Mark Murphy. That was Mark Murphy right there, man. I mean, it's so many times of going to someone and going, oh, I've got it. And they just ask you one question. Oh, can it be done underwater? I'll see you in a week, and then you come back and go, okay, you know what, we need to do this, so it's able to do it underwater or whatever. So having done that quite a few times, especially early on working there, you start to just ask yourself questions because you don't want to, bother the boss or whatever. So, when I go and produce something, I really take a lot of time. I don't know the latest product I'm about to release that you know about. I don't know if this is going to air before or after that.
Probably before.
Before, okay. Well, when I was producing that, it was a year and a half, and the concept was done. Everything's done. It's just fine tuning everything and going, man, not good enough. And at that same time, we're putting money out, tens of thousands of dollars, and ROI is return on investment, right? Mark's always looking for his ROI. And when you have money just kind of hanging out there for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year and a half, you start going, okay, but it's not ready yet, because the most important thing is having people take your product and love it, love everything about it, not having any problems with it. Like I don't have any issues with it. And that's great. That's what we all want. And having that reputation to stand on. So, the rules don't change just because we're Murphys. I'm giving advice to other people to do something that we wouldn't do ourselves. Everyone should really hold themselves to the standard of, you're asking someone to part with their money, right? And you don't want them to feel like they got scammed. You want to give them a good value for their money. We live in that era right now, where the world has really opened up as far as like manufacturing and getting items in at lesser price that we're all used to. There's a whole balance, man. There's a whole balance on everything. And like we talked about before, a lot of people go in and they don't know how to negotiate with manufacturers. Mm-hmm. So they might end up paying, $15 on something they should have paid, $4 for or something. Mm-hmm. And there's so much that goes into putting a product out. We could really spend hours just talking about just that,
Yeah, absolutely. My experience from working with you guys, by the way, on the projects that I'm working with Murphys on directly, it's been absolutely fantastic. I mean,
thank you.
You guys have come back to me, and I come to you with like a product, and you're like, yeah, but what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And what about this? Especially Titanus. He's never happy. I'm like, I got this. It's perfect. No, it's not perfect. Do this. Okay, I've done this. Now it's perfect. No, it's not perfect. Do this. But he's right. And my experience is I had a good trick. I took it to him. And because of him being a pain in the butt, it's become a much better trick.
That's right. And, and that shows that and that's the whole thing we're talking about, the best guys being humble. And, when we're talking about that whole thing earlier, there are other people who we might give advice to who are, no, I'm not changing this is what I want to put out. And you go, oh my gosh, if you just change this, I'll give you an example and of just this happened, maybe 3 years ago. A guy came in and he had a product that if he changed one thing about it, Craig, it was going to be fantastic. He hadn't started, but he refused to do it. So I said, I'll tell you what, because if he changed it, it was going to be a game changer. I said, I'll tell you what, if you change this, I'll bring in 3,000 units. If you don't change it, I'll bring in 200. He said, write me a PO for 200. What? Okay. If that's what you want, that's fine. That's fine. But it's, I don't know what it is, But you know, and I don't hold it against them. To me, it's, you know, I look at this magic business. It's a business. You know, it's a business just like selling guitars and selling amps and drums and everything. And that's a business too. Yeah, sometimes when things like that happen, you kind of go, wow, really? Really? Okay, well, that's cool. All right, well, I'll just do it that way, and you move on. But then we have other guys like you who you know, are humble enough to just go, you know, something, boy, I really wanted to put it out within the next, you know, 45 days, but looks like it's going to be a couple months now because we have to go back and work on a couple more things, but the product's going to be great, right?
Bottom line is nobody's going to know more about the industry and what sells and what doesn't sell and what's popular and what's not popular than Murphy's. And at the end of the day, you said it's a business. It is. You want to sell you want to sell as many units as possible. It's not like you're wanting to screw someone over and go, right, okay, we're going to do this to their product so they sell nothing.
Right.
We're a business. You want to sell as many as you can.
And it is, you know, and I think that's one of the things, and the thing about that is it's okay. It's okay that it's a business. You know, I know a lot of people when Murphy's first got started, especially, they were so down on Murphy's, and like they were the first wholesaler to ever come out. They weren't the first wholesaler, right? They were not.
I can think of dozens.
Dozens
in the day.
Right?
I mean, yeah.
The big thing that people had issue with Murphy's when they first came out was, and it's just, again, Mark being that visionary and leader that he truly is, he grasped all the technology of the internet when the other guys wouldn't. I mean, he had a website before the other guys had websites. He was putting up videos before the other guys were putting up videos. I mean, you can see some of the, I was actually looking at one 2 days ago, one of the places that came out before us, and they still don't have, they're selling things without videos. So it's like, or I don't know if they're selling it, but they have products they're advertising without videos. And so he was the first guy to do that, and people were losing their minds. What are you doing? Why are you? Well, I'm not using a paper catalog like you guys are. This is the new technology, and this is what I'm using. Well, he got a lot of flack for that, but now, of course, just like all technology, everyone jumps aboard. And, you know, for a lot of people to say, you know, and there is truth to it. There is truth to it. You know, all the secrets were not available like they are today. You just couldn't go in and buy secrets. By the same time, you know, you look at it's old periodicals like Stanions, and that have been around for over 100 years. If you read the ad copy that people were selling their products in those magazines back then, if you read that ad copy, you would think it was something that came out 2 years ago. I mean, you know, no threads, no this, no that. Well, this is over 100 years old. They're using the same pitches that we use today, right? And so for people to think like this isn't a business, or there's no place for business in magic, they're 100% wrong. It's just they're 100%. Now, has business changed? Yeah, it's changed for everyone due to technology. I mean, you can go on, you know, I was thinking about this the other day. I was watching this guy play guitar. He was so good. And he was teaching a song on YouTube, and it just hit me. I went, huh, I wonder how many guitar teachers, like guys who give lessons in music shops, are kind of out of a job now because the kids just go, I'm going to go on YouTube and learn it. I'm not going to wait till next Wednesday and then have to go and sit in a room. And I'm going to learn right now in my room, put my headphones on and learn. It's technology. It's not just the magic industry. It's technology. And our world has changed, and it's going to continue to change. And, you know, good businesses change with technology. They just do. And so, you know, we mention names, guys like Richard Sanders, and they're great magicians. They're great people, nice people, but they're business people. Yeah. I mean, he has a family to feed. He has bills to pay. And to think that he would release this stuff and him not look at this as a business, you're wrong. You know, all these guys, and I'm not singling Richard out on this. We spoke about him earlier, and he's one of the better creators we have in our industry. from the Paul Harris's, everyone's aware this is a business,
Yeah.
And some people, unfortunately, like we talked about before, who want to release a new product every week or every other week, are not great long-term business people. They're very short-term, because they basically ruin their brand name just trying to get quick cash, So.
And I imagine as a purchaser, you see Richard Sanders release a product, and you're like, right, thousands of units. I don't even need it. Don't even bother with the assets. Just yeah.
I get excited just hearing someone, like a Paul or a Sanders, or and we keep talking about those names. There's a lot of guys out there like that. But when someone who just consistently puts out good magic, and they go, "Hey, I got something really cool coming out in 2 weeks." Okay, I can't. Well, I get like a kid, because I get excited. Yeah. I'm like, oh, because I know it's going to be good. And it's not, at that point, it's not about like sales or how many weeks. I just want to see what they've come up with this time.
And that's the thing. You can tell you're passionate about magic. Forget about the fact that you're a purchaser and you're a creator and you do it. And that's the same with everyone I've ever met in Murphy's, right down to people like Kathy and those guys. That everybody is just super passionate about magic.
Yeah. And don't get it wrong. I mean, just like anything else, there are times when it's a job. You got to do things you don't like, and it's your job. But it's a great job. I've had a lot of worse jobs, and really, I don't even look at it as a job. I really don't. I don't go, oh man, I gotta go into the op. It's not like that. Because I'm able to be creative and create things in this space, and that's what I really love to do. That's my, when we're talking about everyone has a different kind of space in this big magic world we live in. That's where I love it more than I do performing. I mean, I just love that end of it. And again, I am not saying this just because I'm talking to you, but when you showed me something earlier on a video you had done, when I catch myself like smiling really big as I'm watching something, I'm like, which I'm going to be honest with you, man, maybe happens once every 3 months or something. I'll get something where I just go, I just know it's going to be a winner. So that thing you've come up with is going to be just, everyone is going to want to have this. Everyone. It's a great trick. It's well thought out. You've performed it, and it's mind blowing. It really looks, and you've showed all the guys at Murphy's, and everyone's been like, huh, okay, good stuff, man. Just good stuff. It's a fooler. It's a fooler. So.
But I think that's what you got to do. You're going to go to Murphy's. You got to go in with something good, because I imagine if you have somebody going there every week, going, "I've got this, no, go away. I've got this, no, go." It's kind of the boy that cried wolf. It's like when you get something good, it's kind of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is, but at the same time, oh boy, I don't want this to come off wrong. But even the biggest names in our industry, the biggest ones, and as far as selling magic, I've went, not so sure about that one. And I've had to have the talk about their brand. And, if you put this out, look, you're so-and-so, I'll put it out. But if you look at your legacy of all the products you put out before, and this pales in comparison, and it's kind of a step down. So again, I just want to give you my honest, and that's another thing. It's, you can be honest with people without being insulting or mean or rude or crude or anything. You're just being honest with them. And if it's coming from a caring place, a lot of times people heed that advice, or I don't know if you can call it advice, but just, those words. And so I don't want people to get discouraged. Like if they contact me and I go, "Oh, thanks, but no, that's okay." Because before I knew Tim, I didn't even know he was the guy. He turned me down for a trick, and I was crushed, right? I was probably 22 at the time, 23, and I put a trick into Murphy's, and I got an email back, "Hey, sorry, not for us, blah, blah, blah." And because of that, I never gave him any more ideas or thoughts because I thought, oh, I'm just not good enough for that. I'm not the creative type, obviously, right? So that's kind of where I was. So I don't want to discourage people that if they get a no from me or anyone else in the industry, to pack up your bags and leave. I mean, don't do that. Just figure out why, right? And sometimes they're great ideas, but they've been done before. They didn't know such and such existed, right? And I say, sorry, but it's already been on the market. And sometimes that happens 2, 3, 4 times in a row to someone when they're, sending me stuff. But I always let them know, man, don't let that discourage you, because Craig, we've all seen guys just hit a home run after a while, and you go, oh,
And the other thing is, as a creator, one thing I've noticed is that sometimes you feel like a trick might be better with some, like, for example, I've just bought out this Visible, which has been doing really well in Murphy's, but I didn't go directly to Murphy's for that. I went to 1914, who put it out through Murphy's. And the reason I did that is it felt like a 1914 release. They're very passionate about their deep dive projects. And I just thought they would do such a good job with this, and they have. And I think sometimes it's kind of like there are other options out there. You don't have to just go through Murphy's. There are producers that you can.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of them do a great job. What you really want to do when you're working with someone, especially at that level, and I hope the artists themselves don't think like this, but you also don't want the people you are working with to think like this, because it's going to be detrimental to you down the line. And that is this: I just want Murphy's to buy X amount from me. Okay, so let's say we do that, and I'm just going to pull out a number. It's just whatever. I write you a check for $20,000. Boom, there you go, you got it. And we sell half of the inventory, and we're left with the other half that doesn't sell. Well, we haven't made our money back, not even close, because it's not until if we order 1,000 of something until we get down to under 100 that we actually start to make money, because the rest of that is paying for the product you sold to us and all the other stuff that goes along with it. So when we start looking at that, we go, we took a loss. So now if you come back to me again and you say, hey, dude, I got this cool trick, I want to show it to you, take X amount. I can't, dude. You know why? Let me show you the numbers here. I bought this one for you. And the first time, usually with people, if we go back and forth, I'll let them know, say, look, here's what I feel you're going to sell. And I want to bring that. It's going to be good for our company. It's going to be good for you. And I can always buy more of them. But if you want to put this like contingency on it, right? We have to order so much, that's fine. But if we get stuck with a bunch of them, the next time you do something, it's going to reflect on that, because it just is. Like if you came to me and said, you have to buy 1,000 of everything I do, and we end up selling 10, how many times in a row do you think I'm going to do that? But if your attitude going into the product is, I want to sell as many of these long-term as I can. Long-term, you got to think in long-term, because the whole like, I want to get a quick bunch of cash out of this might happen once or twice, maybe, but the door's shut after that, kind of, it just, and that's eventually what happens, because, and it has nothing to do with us or me not liking anyone or not trusting in them or anything. It's just when you look at the numbers, you have the data sheet in front of you and you say, this is where we're at. So I can bring this many in. And I'd love to do that. I'd love to be the guy who distributes these and does that, but it doesn't make sense for any company. It doesn't matter who they are to bring in a bunch of things if they know the source of that product doesn't hit those numbers. It just doesn't happen,
Which is why the best way to deal with this is to work with you guys to try and.
It is, and it's to know the market. I spoke with someone today who said, well, I spoke with so-and-so, and they said you buy 1,000 units of everything they bring in. And I went, no, really not even close to that. and I don't know why people want to tell other people that, because it's not true. Now, I might say, over time, this particular person has done this, but if that is what they told you, that's not true. And then the sad part about that is it sets up false expectations for people. And when they do a deal, they're not necessarily like completely like, oh, you didn't have confidence in me or my trick. No, it's just not that. It's just that I know the real market. And you're hearing things from someone who might be trying to blow up their own ego, or for whatever reason, telling you things that really aren't what they are. And here's the thing, Craig, you know this industry.
Yeah.
So you know how things really sell and what they really sell and what the average, and it's not that. I mean, we do have products we do extremely well with, but not everyone is putting them out like that. And so the numbers are all over the place, Yeah.
Is there anything that people can do to create an evergreen product? Because there's products that come out and they might be white hot for a month and then they'll disappear and then they'll just trickle out after that. And then as well as me, there's certain products that are always going to sell. Like they're always going to sell forevermore. People are just going to buy these constantly over and over again. Is there anything a creator can do to make a product viable in the long term, or is it really just fluke?
No, I think there is. I think there is, Craig. The magic industry goes through cycles, but there are some things that are just kind of tried and true. And when you take out, I don't know what Richard's going to think when he sees this video, because we keep talking about him. But when you look at something like, the name slips me now.
Any card?
Hyundai 500.
Oh yeah. Extreme Burn.
Extreme Burn. Thank you. Sorry, Rich. There have been a lot of versions of that, but he wasn't the first guy to do it either.
Pat Page, easy money.
Patrick Page, easy money, right? So we look at Patrick Page, and it's a trick that's been forgotten, and it was a good trick. But Richard took it, and just by changing a couple things, turned it into a great trick, right?
Yeah.
And here's the thing: the trick is simple. It's simple to understand from a spectator point of view. You have blank pieces of paper, a bunch of ones, and poof, now they're $100 bills. Easy. You're not having me think of a card, remember a card, 8 things down, whatever. It's super simple. Boom, this is it. The method is super simple. It takes very little practice. It's super visual. There's no angle issues. You can go down the line and there you go. It hits all of the buttons all day long. And every time you see a product like that, someone who owns a shop, man, they're going to carry that around with them all the time. And they're going to go, hey, here, take a look at this. Well, what's that? Oh, here it is. $35 or $40, whatever it is. And
well, I was speaking to Doc Eason the other day, and he said Extreme Burn is the one thing he carries around with him everywhere he goes.
There you go. And so there's no false advertising in it, and it works, and they continue to sell great. And you have to hit those buttons. And the card trick you showed me earlier, that hits those buttons, right? When you look at tricks that are going to be around for a long, long time, they have to hit that. They have to hit those things. I mean, I remember when I was first hanging out with Tim Trono, he made a comment to me, and it's true to this day. He had said, some of the best magic you will ever see in a magic shop happens the first time you go in there. And it's so true. You'll see a Scotch soda. You'll see a not Nichols deck. You'll see an invisible deck. You'll see a sponge ball deck. These things are happening in your hands. You can look at them. It's mind blowing. I mean, their age is old, but it's the best stuff. It's the best stuff, and a lot of times we keep trying to improve on things that are so great, but I can't see, like personally, I can't see anyone knocking a product like the invisible deck to second tier as far as, setup decks, gimmick decks go. It's that, and it stood the test of time, and there it is. Now, people are going to come up with a lot of versions. Some are going to be popular and sell maybe number 2 under that, or number 3 under that. I don't see anyone knocking that trick out of first place, right? Because it's so good. And so it's coming up with, but not all tricks that have been out for so long are that good. And Extreme Burn is a great example of that. It was a really good trick to start, but Richard took it and made it a great trick, and it hit all those. It just hit all those buttons. And so when you do that, and when you can think about all those things, is it visual? Is it easy on the eyes, meaning the spectator can just look at it and be like, oh my gosh? Is it easy for you to perform to where you're not having to count and do all these different things while you're performing it? Are your angles good? Can you take it to a party on people around you and do this? Yeah, well, everyone's going to buy it, and they should, because it hits all the buttons, right? So that's kind of my advice. If you see or think of something, just like we talked about earlier, see how you can improve it. Yeah.
Amazing advice, Patrick, really is. The one thing I'd add to everything that you've said as well is don't burn your bridges. We've seen artists that have gone off all over the internet, and I know they've regretted it down the line at some point.
Yeah,
you never want to burn your bridges, right?
Yeah, and sometimes just like on the Magic forums, there's a lot of gaslighting. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. And the unfortunate thing is, sometimes there's some really good people out there who fall victim to it, and they get caught up in that snare. And all that happens is you're throwing chum to the sharks at that point. Mm-hmm. Just let them, whirl around in the water, and they're going to go away. And that's really, when you look at that, some of the people who do that, that's all they do. Because I used to look at a lot of that and go, man, let me take another look at this trick, whatever. But, when you go back and look at, you might look at someone's posts over the past 60 days and it's all negative towards people's things. You start going, okay, well, that's what he does for a living. This person complains about people's tricks or whatever. So you just take it with a grain of salt and whatever. But yeah, just you never want to burn bridges. Even there are people who've done some things that definitely weren't cool, and at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm still willing to work with them. I just forgive and move on, because if I made a mistake like that and didn't know any better, I would want somebody to forgive me and just be, what, let's let bygones be bygones and move forward. Let's just work. Life's too short. I don't need any enemies.
Nice. I really love that. Can I ask you one more question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We've been talking up until this point about physical products. Obviously, over the last few years, downloads have become super popular.
Yeah.
Like, and like when you see so many new tricks come out, it's not actually so many new physical tricks. A lot of the time, it's playing cards, because playing cards seem to have become the thing. We talked about that earlier on.
Yeah.
And it's downloads. Like, is there a completely different department in Murphy's that deal with downloads to what
yes.
you do? Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yeah. So Bro Gilbert is the head of the download platform. And those who don't know who Bro Gilbert is, Bro Gilbert was Paul Harris's right-hand man and producer for many, many years. And we were lucky enough to be able to bring him on. And so he's in charge of that. And that could be a task in itself, because now it's a whole other kettle of fish, right? Because now I don't look at a lot of downloads. I mean, some things will come through, I'll take a little peek at it, but that's really a different department, because my hands are full doing what I do. So, and sometimes it happens to where we have someone go, hey, I put out a download just like that 2 years ago, and take a look at them, and you go, you know what? Yeah, absolutely. You take it down, and you know, and sometimes they're great, and sometimes they're not so great. And again, you know, one of the things I don't, you know, I think when downloads first happened, you know, 5, 6 years ago, when they were like a real big, and they're still a big deal. You know, and I'm the same way. I'm the same way. I like my toys, man.
Yeah.
You know, downloads I think are great for things like you're going to learn a new version of the pass. You're going to do some tutorial type stuff. But a lot of times it's, you know, you need a glue gun, you need this, you need 8 rubber bands, you need, and you're, you know, sitting there for 4 hours making a card. And, you know, for some people, they enjoy that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I should, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I do like a more finished product. I like getting a toy. And so downloads are great for what they do, but I don't think they're ever going to take the place of the physical product thing, especially in something like Magic. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I'd agree with you completely. Yeah. I'd agree with you completely. You spoke to me off camera earlier on about you're doing a lot with the L&L stuff. For those people that are watching this that don't know, Murphys have bought the L&L range. I tell you what I miss, Patrick. I miss the days of when you had, like, you know, an L&L thing come out where it was like a deep dive into a performer, and you had like 15 routines and they were all solid on what. These days it's a single trick, and I understand why it's a single trick DVD, and it comes with it's, I get why it is, but I sometimes miss that new Michael Amar easy to master box set dropping, where I know I'm going to be locked up in a room for like 6 months just learning. Do you know what I mean? I'm
exactly. So as a matter of fact, we hadn't talked about this, but right now I'm working on like the Michael Amar stuff. You know, we're gonna HD it and doing all this. I'm going through, and I haven't seen that stuff in so long, at least 15 years. And Michael is such a fantastic teacher.
He's a legend.
I mean, him and Daryl, if you want to be taught something the right way by someone, wow, I'm talking just unbelievable. And I was looking through those easy to master card miracles. They are so good. They are so good. I mean, if anyone is starting out in Magic, I would buy one of them, buy number 1. And then just go to 2 and 3. Very little, if any, gimmicks used. I mean, it's all card stuff, really no sleight of hand involved, and just great magic. Great magic. So yeah, they have an enormous library of stuff, and it's all going to be coming back out.
It must be really a hard job to go through the whole L&L back catalogue, all the tricks, all the books, all the DVDs, all of the, whoa. I mean, that must be...
Yeah, so I'll give you a little sneak peek right now. So right now I'm just finishing up one of the products that was called The Web by Jim Pace.
Oh, yeah, I remember The Web, yeah.
That great trick. Well, we have a brand new spider in the family, and it's fantastic. Looks great, and new cards, and we're adding additional cards. So for new routines, it's a very easy to do routine is, but you know, if you want to take that to some other levels, you can. So I think that's probably going to be one of the first physical L&L things we're going to release. And there's going to be some new instruction and some new effects with that. So yeah, it's taking each one of those and just like with the Daryl line or whatever, you know, seeing what you can improve with it.
I love what you guys have done with the Daryl line. You've modernized it. The packaging looks great, but it's still paying respect to the genius that was Daryl.
Absolutely. And he was, man. I mean, the guy was And he's another one. Yeah, I had mentioned that. He was another great teacher. And I remember we were at I forget where we were, but we were in a hotel room somewhere. And I had just like been going through like the past year, the Frank Garcia book of sponge balls, which is such a great book. But there's, I don't know how many variations of a sponge ball vanish there are, but I had learned quite a few of them. The spider vanish and this vanish and the okay vanish and all these other vanishes. And I was showing him, I was like, what do you think of that? What if I did this one or that? And he was very kind, very patient. And he sat there and he said, well, you look like a magician vanishing a ball. And I went, huh? And he goes, let me ask you something. Pick up that ball and put it in your hand. I said, okay. He goes, that's how it should look when you're vanishing it. Like you're just putting it in your hand. You don't need to do all this stuff. It looks cool and it's great for magicians, but what you're projecting to the audience is, I'm doing something tricky here, right? And so just put it in your hand and move on. Because they're not thinking, you know, at the same level we are. Just because we know the secret, a lot of times we want to find out something that's going to fool us even more when we're chasing our own tails, right? So yeah, he was a great guy, Daryl. Yeah.
Well, hopefully, and there's more Daryl legacy items coming out in the future, right?
Yeah, I'm working on audio transposition right now, which is another great one.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, there's quite a few. You had mentioned one you really love earlier.
I'm on a mission to get this re-released.
So I'll moving that to the top of the list for you. But yeah, I have maybe 3 or 4 new ones that are going to be released in the next couple months, and then after that, it's going to be audio transposition and some of those. But you know, audio transposition, it's a funny one. You know, when I was just told about it, and I went, oh, that sounds kind of. Then I saw Daryl perform it, and I was like, oh, that is so good. I bought one, and I mean, I was like, you know. I have to have that. So lots of great stuff coming out. Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you one final question.
Okay.
Patrick, before we wrap this thing up, which is, what's next? You got the dream job. You're connected to everybody. You work doing something you absolutely love. We've already talked about how you love playing with toys. Leaving the grocery store 15 years ago was definitely, in hindsight, a good idea.
Yeah.
Is there anything left on your, I want to say, magical bucket list that you haven't achieved? Is there anything you'd like to do in Murphy's that you haven't achieved? Or are you just kind of happy right now where you are doing what you love? Or
no, I think, you know, I am happy doing what I do and loving what I do. But I'm also one of these guys who's never really satisfied too. So I'm always, I don't think I have like an end in sight. Like I want to, it's just this kind of train that keeps on, just keeps on going. You know, I've really, and I know it's going to sound stupid and cliche, I just want to be a good guy to everyone. And keep doing what I'm doing, and hopefully, I'll have the good sense to keep putting out magic and putting out projects that people like. That's really all I can hope for, man. You know, like I said, I've been blessed with so much in my life, and just the journey of my life, the people I've met along the way, and the opportunities I've had, and the experiences I've had. And my family, it's just, I'm just really in a good place, man, you know, and this whole magic thing, it's a part of my life. I've always loved magic, and, I just, like I say, hope to continue doing things that people like. And I'm also looking for guys like you, if they think something's like, you know, someone at Murphy's has to listen up here a little bit. I listen to you. I mean, I listen to guys like yourself who know what they're talking about. When again, when you came out and said that thing about the bird, the self-flying bird, I take from that. I go, here's someone who's saying something that I respect. I know they know what they're talking about. So maybe I need to take a step back and reevaluate things a little bit. And I do, and it helps me. So, yeah.
And I know you guys, some people, I think they have the perception that the guys at Murphy's just sit there with their fingers in their ears going, la, 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 la.
No.
You guys listen to everything. I know that you guys watch my rant videos because
Yes.
I'm not going to say who, but somebody at Murphy's reached out to me quite high up after I did a kind of a thing about the pop-up on the website and how annoying it is that it always just pops up right in the middle of a tutorial. It's like,
Yeah.
and I was told that whole thing is getting overhauled. And you guys listen, you guys pay attention, you monitor the cafe, you monitor Facebook groups, you know what people are saying, you monitor the YouTubers like me, you know what's going on.
Yeah, well, and it's thanks to guys like you. I mean, like I said before, there are people who all they like to do is complain. And that's okay. We listen to that too. But it's the people who we know, they know the industry, they know what's going on, they know magic, they're perform, and when people come and they say things like that, we take heed to them, right? Because for us to sit up there and think like, hey, we're on top of the mountain and we'll just throw it. No, it's not like that at all. It's actually, I should say maybe on top of the pyramid, because it's like an upside down pyramid, the way I look at it. I look at it as we're on the bottom. And if it weren't for everyone purchasing things and then people giving feedback, we wouldn't be there. We just wouldn't be there. So we're really there to support the community, and kind of be a support for them. And I know I look at our company that way. I know for sure Mark Murphy looks at our company that way. And all the guys you mentioned look at it that way. You can't help but to be humble when you work at Murphy's, because there are so many smart people there in their own category of magic or business, or their expertise might be social media on top of being a great magician. Like you look at Luke Dancy. Luke is a great magician. He's a great producer. He does great things, and he knows social media. So who better to have in that position, right? And when he'll send me an email, hey man, so and so just said this. Maybe you want to take a look at it. Okay. Oh, that's great. That's great. That's great. He just sent me something today. I was, oh, it's really good. I like that. And we do listen to what people say, absolutely, because we want to be successful, right? And if we did have our fingers in our ear,
it feels like you headhunt the best of the best. I mean, if you're going to pick somebody to look after your social media, Luke Dancy, damn. You want to pick somebody to look after, your downloads, Bro Gilbert. You want to have somebody who looks after your creative team, Titanus, Lloyd Barnes. You guys, for people that say, "Oh, Murphy's don't," you guys have got some of the best minds in the industry on your payroll.
I taking myself out of that, I would agree 100%. I mean, just looking at everyone you mentioned, plus everything we all learned from Mark, because Mark is a man of very few words, especially if you watch through a convention. Very quick. He never is. That's about all you get from him.
He's an enigma. Nobody's ever knows who he is. Like, nobody knows who he is. That he doesn't do interviews. He doesn't. He's. People just don't know him.
He is, and he's a smart guy, and to be able to sit next to him and him teach you, I can't even, just the hours and hours and hours we spent together just discussing different things about business, about magic, about, just everything. If it's marketing, if it's whatever. I would like to think, and I know he feels this way, he learns from everyone else too. right? He learns from all of us when we talk. But he's having that opportunity. It's really been good for all of us because he's not a magician. He's a really good businessman. And when you can learn from people, anyone in whatever field they're in who are at the top of their game, it's a great opportunity, right? And so I treasure all that. I treasure everyone I work with, and again, Craig, having guys like you out there who say things how they are, and there are a lot of just good people in magic, man. There are, and like I was saying earlier, it's tough when you see, early on, like seeing Shin, who he was like 17 at the time when I first met him, man. It was crazy.
I remember seeing his first, I think was his first release, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That any card at any number type thing.
Yeah.
That was the first one. I remember being at World Magic Shop when that dropped, and there was like a conference call or something, and I walked in as that was going on, and everybody's like, "Oh, there's this kid. He's got this trick. It's so good."
Yeah. And people are just beating him up, and then the thing is, a lot of people see these trailers and they're the trick, and they don't really realize, he's a person. Like Craig is a person, right? And I mean, they don't understand that, he's a very shy person, a very kind person, and they just see maybe him doing this bit in front of the camera, which is for the camera, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not who he is. He doesn't walk around doing all that. He's very kind, quiet, shy person. When people start beating someone up like that on especially when they're that young and new to the business, I shake my head and I go, what are you doing? And at the end of the game, look where he's at now. Right?
Probably the most well-known magician in the world at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment, you're right. And it's because he just stayed on his game. He didn't he didn't fall victim to staying online and going back and forth with these guys and throwing chum in the water. He just said, okay, you know what? I'm just not even going to look at that. I'm just going to keep on focusing on what I'm doing. And Mark Murphy's the same way. I got to say, I mean, his whole thing is focus on the road ahead. You're going to have distractions, people throwing things at you, trying to trip you. You just keep on, have your focus at the end of that road and keep going. And he's been right. I mean, I can't deny that. Yeah. Yeah.
Now we're going to finish this off, but let me ask you a question. If people want to reach out to you, maybe get some advice, or they want to pitch a product to you or something, is there a way to get, are people best to go to you, or is it best to go through another email address? Or
they can. Yeah, it's very simple. The best way to contact me, because you know what, I'm the one guy out there, man, with no social media. I mean, I
know that's why people don't know who you are.
I don't, and the reason is, the truth is, and I really don't mean this to sound any way but what it is, I don't have time for it. I just don't have time, and I don't want to be rude to people, because I know if people post something, they expect you to like it or do different things with it, and I don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, you didn't reply on my thing or something, and I offend someone. It's just better for me not. I just don't have the time.
How do you eat your dinner without posting it on Instagram first? I don't understand.
I just, that's why I'm the size I am. I just go straight for the chow, man. No, but the best way to get a hold of me is just through my email address. And that's Patrick@murphysmagic.com. Very simple. Patrick@murphysmagic.com. And I was just laughing really quick because yesterday I sent my daughter what I thought was an emoji. And she laughed and said, Dad, that's a GIF. It's not an emoji. And I went, okay, whatever. And then she showed me something, and I asked her if it was a Vine. And she's like, Vine's not even around anymore, Dad. This is TikTok. I'm like, okay, it's too much for me. It's all too much for me.
You need to go get lessons from Luke. He'll hook you up. He'll sort you out.
Right. Yeah, it's a good thing I'm not in charge. Yeah.
Oh Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. So it's at the bottom of the screen, patrick@murphysmagic.com. That's great. So, you know what?
What?
This has been incredible. I knew it would be incredible. This has been incredible. You are, like I say, I've known you for a long time. You are such a nice guy. You have a position in Murphy's where you kind of have to not always give people the best news, but you are always so nice about it, and everybody absolutely loves you. And as I say, best kept secret of magic. I described you, as I say, just off cameras. You are to Murphy's what Q is to James Bond. You know, you're just every time we speak, I'll get a message on Skype going, I've got this idea, and then you'll show me this thing that will just blow my mind. And then it's like, hey, let me show you this. And I'm just like, what is just
well, thank you. That means an awful lot, because you know, I hold you in high regard. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. Very kind words. Thank you.
Oh man, you are amazing. And if anybody is watching this from Murphy's, you have a huge asset on your hands with Patrick. He is absolutely amazing.
I'll make sure to forward this to everyone.
Absolutely. You just forward it. You know, I'll send an email to Mark Murphy. Patrick rocks. Yeah, subject. Patrick rocks. There you go. So thanks, man, because I know how busy you are as well. Like you say, you haven't got time for social media, and yet here you are sitting down doing an interview that's
this is great.
Social media. So thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your time, and I'm humbled and honored that you would ask me to be a part of your program. So thank you very much.
No problem. And as a sneak peek, at some point in the future, I'm going to be jumping back on with you, because you've got a huge thing coming out in the next 6 weeks. And Patrick has promised he's going to do a review show special on it. So I'm going to be chatting with him again in the future about this big thing that we can't talk about, but it's incredible. And it's coming out at some point in the next few weeks. And that's all we're saying. So you will see Patrick on the channel again, but leave a comment down below. Patrick will definitely not see it, but maybe his daughter will, and he'll tell him about it. We don't know, but I'll see it, so I can pass it on to him. And I will see you again soon. Okay, Patrick, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys, my friend. It's good seeing you.
Good to see you, man. Guys, make sure that you leave a comment down below, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another video. I'll see you then. My name's Craig from Magic TV.